All right, Molo Sanbonani. Hello, how's it? Good morning, good morning, good morning to this, the Thursday edition of Vuganazo, your morning news analysis show. Welcome to it. My name is Usihle Ngobese, aka Big Daddy Liberty. If you love the content here on the show, do me a solid favor, as I like to say, hit that like button, will you? And show some appreciation. It's the only price of admission, whether you're watching this show live right now at 7 a.m. or later and watching a recording. Remember, daily we also put out a snippet of the show just to whet your appetite if you haven't seen the live show yet or the show itself. That being said, whether you're watching this broadcast, which is simulcasted on Facebook, YouTube, or on Twitter, if you're watching on Twitter, pardon, on YouTube in particular, do me a big favor, subscribe to the channel. Help me reach my goal. Hopefully, we're working towards it, of 40,000 subscribers by the end of the year. Tell your friends, tell your family to subscribe to the Big Daddy Liberty channel on YouTube. That being said, we also have a website. Find us at BigDaddyLiberty.com. That's BigDaddyLiberty.com. There, of course, you can also pledge some support. We're trying to build a BDL club, I think what we've coined it, of people who basically contribute between 50 to 100 Rand a month towards the channel. Those funds will wholeheartedly go towards keeping the editor we now have on the show, hiring some writers, and more importantly, the travel fund for next year as we hit the road again, advocating for liberty ideas. It is very important next year as it's effectively the run-up to an election year. It's time to start pushing and infusing communities in this country with the ideas that can hopefully usher in change in 2024. Be a part of that, so to support the channel with a monthly contribution. With that being said, enough with the jibber jabber. How about we get straight into the news? So it is an interesting Thursday morning indeed as we begin here. You remember we've been covering this issue of Uyanush Walush. He is, of course, the man who murdered communist leader Chris Hani back in 1993, if I'm not mistaken in terms of the year. That individual now, finally, walking out of prison yesterday with medical parole. You remember the Constitutional Court, of course, it's taking the Constitutional Court for this man to finally get what is actually constitutionally his right in this country. Remember, if you're given a life sentence in this country, you have to serve at least 25 years to be eligible for parole, which basically means just serving your sentence outside of prison custodianship. Now, Walush, of course, had served 28 of those particular years. And why? Because successive ministers have been blocking his attempt, basically, to acquire medical parole. Let me quickly read this piece, of course, in 24, which basically outlined wrong piece. Let me just quickly change that. But as I'm quickly fiddling with that, do me a solid favor, please. Hit that like button as I am quickly just trying to share this particular screen. Where is it? Oh, my goodness. Okay, well, we don't have that screen. Well, there you go. Guys, it's a live show. It happens. But nonetheless, the story was in News 24, which basically wrote the story up quite well. There it is, which wrote the story up quite well, also including a lot of the commentary around the various players, if you will, the actors, including politicians who never wanted this to happen. Again, which always begs the question, as I like to put it, why make laws in a certain fashion if you don't want people using those constitutional laws? Remember, the same people who are bitching and moaning about Janusz Walush getting parole are those very same politicians who wrote the laws that give this option of medical parole. Why didn't they go to Parliament? I always argued and amend the legislation to say that parole is optional, that some people can be sentenced without parole, as you have, for example, in some parts of America, where life in prison literally means life in prison. Yet you had these politicians sort of appear on our screens and pretend as if, oh no, they had nothing to do with this, and this is just a happenstance situation, seeing Walush be granted medical parole. Here's the article that I was talking about. Here's the article as I had hiccups. the article I was talking about, where it comments, cites the comments of Ule Sufi, that's the Premier of Gauteng, saying wherever he goes, he must know he is a loser. That's Lesufi, of course, on Walush's release yesterday. As I said, after spending 28 years in prison for the assassination of SACP and ANC leader Chris Hani, Janusz Walush was released from prison on Wednesday as ordered by the Constitutional Court. Now, you'll remember, of course, that his release after the constitutional judgment and actually said in 10 days he must be released, but that also was pushed back due to him being stabbed in prison. Now, about that particular stabbing, News 24 previously reported that the 69-year-old, that's Walush, was queuing for dinner when he was stabbed in his upper body with a sharp object, a shank of sorts. The man accused of stabbing him is serving the man accused of stabbing him is serving a life sentence for murder and attempted murder. Now, the offender, according to the ministry, Walush was only discharged from hospital today. That's actually on 7th of December yesterday, as he had been receiving treatment after he was involved in a stabbing incident. End of quote. Excuse me. Again, I raise this because there's two issues here, and I'll be brief. Number one, your constitutional rights are exactly that. There are constitutional rights. They are not subject to who you are. They're not subject to whether we like you or not. I had this argument in relation to the issue of the rule of law in this country and why, for example, Lady Justice is depicted as having a blindfold. Justice should be dispensed regardless of who it's being dispensed on and without fear and without favor. You may not like Janusz Walush. Indeed, I don't like Janusz Walush. The man is a murderer. He's violated the first principle I hold on to, which is life being sacred. Whether I think that life is douchey or not, insofar as who it may be. And I'm not saying Hani is douchey, just in case people interpret it that way, but I'm just making the broader point. Whether, no matter how you view that particular person and how they exercise and use their life, life is sacred. It's a God-given right that we all have. And Janusz Walush, I've always said, will face final judgment like every human being with Hashem. But with that being said, the first issue, of course, is that. The second issue, of course, is in keeping with the first one of everybody should be equal before the law. It is being funny to watch, and funny to watch them deny, that is the South African government, that they've been treating Janusz Walush differently and outside of the law. That's exactly what they've been doing, and indeed, the Constitutional Court judgment said as much, that this man's rights effectively have been violated, including now this special dispensation being done to deny him his effective right to leave the country, as that same government had actually stripped him. The same ANC government had stripped him of his South African citizenry all the way back in 2016, if I'm not mistaken. So why are they keeping him in the country? Let him go back to Poland, where he should be, in another country. And indeed, Walush himself is likely going to fight this in court as he is requested being deported back to Poland. Why keep him here? If you don't like this guy, as the politicians allege they don't, and they want him out of their faces as quickly as possible, why take away that very ability of his to footsack out of the country? These are many questions we need to ask ourselves as we listen to the hypocrisy of these politicians. All right, guys, I'll move us on this morning to an issue which really does dominate the here and now. In fact, you might be sitting right now in relative darkness. I know it's the morning, or you were in hours upon hours of darkness, as was the case with Eskom elevating South Africa's load shedding schedule to stage 6 of the collapse, because that's what it is. We need to start calling load shedding for what it is. It's a collapse of an entity which is given the sole duty of providing electricity in this country. Let me put this on screen, of course, where a lot of people were shocked, as I'm often surprised when people are shocked, but nonetheless, a lot of people were shocked rather that Eskom had put us back onto load shedding firstly, then initially declaring level 4 of the stuff, there it is, and then moving to stage 6 of the nonsense. Let me just quickly get this in the right format. There we go. There you go. Stage 6 to continue until Friday, according to Eskom. some 4,984 megawatts in capacity is out due to planned maintenance, while another 19,000 effectively megawatts of capacity is unavailable due to breakdowns. Anybody who seeks to pretend at this point that Eskom is going to bounce back, or it's just like a matter of reshuffling the deck chairs of who's the CEO, is woefully fooling themselves. That is a lot of electricity to be, quote, on breakdown. It's effectively a broken institution. The article continues to say, as previously communicated, due to the depletion of the budget to acquire diesel for open cycle gas turbines, Eskom has been forced to strictly preserve the remaining diesel for an extreme emergency situation, such as multiple simultaneous trips of generators. In other words, the complete breakdown of the grid, the complete shutdown of the grid. Eskom has overspent its budget for diesel, which fuels the gas turbines. The turbines themselves provide emergency power to prevent load shedding, which since April the 1st, the company has spent 12 billion on diesel against a revised budget of 11 million rand, end of quote. Actually continues to say it has no more cash to buy diesel until the 1st of April next year. That's the new financial year for Eskom, end of quote. Again, two things. One, the fact that Eskom has now normalized the use of what is emergency reserves, emergency measures in order to power ordinary demand is your first red flag for anybody who continues to insist that the politicians will fix this or something will happen and, you know, the miracle will happen. Number two, the very fact that Eskom is broke and has the audacity to not only in the first instance pass the debt on to us as ordinary tax-paying South Africans, about 400 billion rands worth of debt, and then in addition to that, demand hat in hand more money from government in order to fund a emergency measure used for ordinary reasons, tells you the level of collapse. So that I've always said this and I'll say it again. You need to prepare. You need to prepare and make sure your own home has emergency backup for when a blackout eventually does happen. Yes, I use those words. Eventually does happen, whether it's solar, a generator, or whatever you find within your pocket, you need to prepare. And if preparing also means banding together as neighbors in order to afford some of this technology, so be it. Do it. The measures, or the times rather, demand it. Stop sitting back and thinking that someone will save you. The next thing, of course, is it is very important to have a community mindset when it comes to having backup power and indeed just backup options, because I can assure you now, and I say this as someone who is in the situation, if you're the only house lit up in a time of a blackout, trust you me, the very same community members or the very same neighbors who you think are on your side or understand will be the first to raid, if anything, the very backup measures, the preparedness that you have put in place. So working as a community is critically important on this issue, such as on any other issue where us as South Africans are facing state collapse. That's where we leave it this morning on Vuka Nazo. Tell me, how do you like these live shows? I'm not so sold about them. I might go back to pre-recorded shows because they're much slicker and indeed within the time limit. But hey, as always, I'm wholly dependent on your feedback on these shows. With that being said, let me know what you think. Leave a comment, of course. You can do that by finding us either on our website at bigdaddyliberty.com. You can also leave a message there. And whilst you're there, do me a favor. Subscribe, or rather support the show financially. Payment details are on the website. Of course, subscribe to the show if you're watching on YouTube. And hey, drop us a like right now as you're exiting the show. With that being said, thank you all for watching this morning's show. I'll see you tomorrow on the Friday edition, where of course we will have a Moomish or a loser of the week, or maybe a champ of the week. Stay tuned, find out. See you tomorrow, bright and early from 7 a.m. weekdays for Vuka Nazo.